Welcome back to another episode of St. Francis Ministries Conversations video podcast series. I'm Father Andrew O'Connor, the Executive Officer for Mission and Ministry here at St. Francis. And today we're going to be talking about our FCT, our Family-Centered Treatment Program. And I'm joined by one of the families who have been through the program with us, Jamie and Blake Andrews. Great to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, let's get started. Megan, tell us a little bit about yourself and what's your background, particularly in child and family welfare, and your title and what you do.
Yeah. So my name's Megan. I have been in St. Francis Family Centered Treatment for almost a year now. So coming up on that, which is super exciting.
Congratulations.
Previously, I worked in Alabama in the juvenile probation office, and under a family court judge. And then for a little bit of time, I did ministry with youth in detention facilities. So I've worked a lot with kids who have had tough backgrounds or have grown up in difficult homes. And I really just wanted to work more on the family side and help prevent the fallout of some of those things that I got to see while working in the court systems.
Awesome. Well, hey, congratulations on almost a year with us. We're
Thank you.
We're glad you're on the team. Jamie and Blake, tell me a little bit about yourselves.
So yeah, I guess I'll start first. Well, I'm Blake. I've already done the introductions, but I've worked in manufacturing basically my whole life. Fun fact, I'm currently going to get my master's degree. It'll be done in early August. Enjoy time in the outdoors, tinkering, spending time with family. I think that pretty much covers it.
Awesome. Jamie?
Jamie, as we said. Same hobbies as Blake. We like to spend time with the kids, a lot of sporting events and stuff. So there's not a whole lot to us other than time with the kids. So
Well, tell me where you guys met.
So Jamie was visiting. So she lived with her mom. Her mom was in the military and was visiting for the summer in our hometown of Winfield. And we bumped into each other in the summertime, and kind of the rest is history. So
15 years later.
Hey, congratulations. So you've been married 15 years. How many kids do you guys have?
Together 15 years, married 10, 9.
7.
A number. It's 8 now.
We might have to reshoot this.
Yeah, sorry. We've been married for some time. We have 2 kids, Brantley and Remington. So
What are their ages?
Brantley is 13 and Remington she just turned 7. Yeah.
So Megan, tell us a little bit about family-centered treatment and why it's important.
Yeah. So family-centered treatment works on just like strengthening the family unit as a whole. So we kind of go in there, we assess and look at the parents, and we're like, hey, like what's going on? Like, what are the issues? What are some of the struggles you guys are having? We talk to the kids and we're like, what are the issues you guys are having? Like, what are your struggles? And then we set goals with the families, that we bring in skills. So we work on like communication or anger or like boundary setting. So we do a bunch of different skills. We do parent building skills. We did marriage building skills. And yeah, so we really just work on strengthening the family unit as a whole with every single family member involved in the home.
Yeah. So and that's an important thing to say that these services are provided in home.
Yes, they are provided in home. So I travel out, any of the FCT specialists, we travel out to the families' homes and we work in the homes with them. It's where they feel the most comfortable and where they're the most themselves, and we really get to see like what's going on in their house. So
And why do we use this model particularly?
It's our program is evidence-based. It's an evidence-based treatment, and this is the one that's proven to work through all of the evidence that we've gathered with families that we've worked with in the past. So
Yeah, I'm aware that our success rate is like close to 94%.
yeah, something, I'm not sure of the exact number, but something like that. So yeah.
I think they said 99 for Kansas.
Yeah, I think Kansas, and I think this originated in Kansas to begin with.
Well, we brought it here
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. But it definitely has been a successful program.
Yeah.
For us, and maybe we'll turn to you guys and ask a little bit about your perspective. Do you mind sharing sort of how you came to be in service with us?
Yeah, I think I can start. So, um, just address the elephant in the room here. I've struggled with anger my entire life. There was an altercation in the home between our oldest son and myself. And I think that's what triggered the majority of this. But just to kind of touch on the environment a little bit, being FCT, being in the home, um, Megan gave us pretty much free reign. So, if you guys want to sit on the couch and talk about this, we kind of found home at the dining room table. That's where our family meetings kind of happen. Anyway, we speak over dinner. That's one of the growths and goals that we actually established in FCT. But just the agility to be in your own home and find your comfort, whether that is on the couch or at the dining room table, it really and to be honest, I was not very open at the beginning, and I think that's a little bit natural, but it very quickly that wore off. The walls kind of came down, and you start to see things pretty objectively as far as how that goes. But as far as experience and kind of uncovering some of those things, you're almost blind to yourself until you talk through those and you realize the root of all the column issues, column habits, whatever, where those come from. And very quickly you realize what you've learned may not be exactly the right thing and may not be what you want to continue on in after generations and generations. So that's kind of my piece on how it came to be, and I guess I got a little ahead, but
No, you're fine. You're totally
where
fine. No, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you sharing something that I know is not probably easy to say in a sort of in a public way, but I do think that being able to sort of demonstrate how these programs can help people and why prevention services are so important really is an opportunity for anybody watching this, to say, hey, maybe that's something we need to look at too. So really do thank you for that.
Well, and to tag on to what you said, a lot of our hesitation to enter this program with Megan, and as Blake said, we tried very many times to excuse ourselves. So with the altercation that occurred between our son and Blake, that was the first time an angry home had become a physically angry home. And so that was tough. It just so happened Brantley sees a sports therapist he talks to about life, but working through sports skills, I had reached out to her to let her know that there had been an incident and Brantley may bring it up. And incidentally, Brantley had had a black eye from wrestling. Truthfully, not, but it was a coincidence and it was looked into. And so I think a lot of our hesitation too, because it went against who we believed we were as parents. It went against the idea we had of what our home was, and to have the DCF is, it kind of brings with it a negative thought. And we were very much like, no, we are not DCF family. We are not a family who needs help. We're happy, we're healthy, we're fed, we can afford all these things. And so a lot of our hesitation came from that. And I'm so very glad that we didn't let it stop us and we were able to move forward.
Yeah, yeah. So I can imagine all of the sort of the weight of like how did this happen to us, or how are we in this position? What was that sort of first day like when you welcomed Megan in? What was that like for you guys?
um
So
Megan, how was it for you?
I would say the first session, I told my coworkers and I was like, I don't think that they're going to accept services. Like I was fully anticipating, I was like, I'm going to sell this as hard as I can. And then I like got the text from you like a few days later that you were in, and I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, yes. I was so like, I just remember being really excited for you guys. And just like also really glad that you guys were like, no, we want to do this, because I was almost 100% certain that like it was gonna be a no.
so are we.
Yeah. So I don't know what happened in those 48 hours that I was not there after I went in, but something changed in that conversation, and I think for the better. But
We had been praying. Like I said, even though our home wasn't physically aggressive, there was a lot of anger in just mean habits we had formed. And I had been praying for some sort of, anything. And I did not believe at the time. I Googled the FCT and it said intensive family therapy. And one of the first steps was determining whether the children could stay in the home. And I immediately said, nope, that's not us. Megan came and talked to us. And if we're being honest, it was a problem within our marriage. We were on very different pages about it, and I didn't want to go against Blake, but I also knew we something had to change. I didn't know if this was it, but we were being given these resources, and I told Blake, I said, I think we're just gonna do it, and he said, I don't, and I said, yeah, and I know, me too, but I think we're just gonna do it, and we have said many times, again, we're so glad we did that. We took that leap. So prayer and just deciding to do the hard things, doing the hard things.
So hesitancy, obviously. What were your expectations kind of on that first day?
The first day we met, or the
Yeah,
first day,
yeah, first day you met.
the first day she came and talked to us. Honestly, I had, as I said, researched a little bit, so I kind of had an idea of how the program worked. The evidence-based, I'm in healthcare, so the EBP is something we talk about a lot, evidence-based practice, and so that kind of sparked some interest. Honestly, I thought she would come in and just sit there and, tell us this is what we're gonna do and why, but that's not what happened.
No, so it's as you can imagine, you're in your home, a stranger comes in and they're trying to uh I won't say sell you on something, but run through the spiel. So I guess initially it's kind of awkward, but it's not it I don't think it was a really objective conversation. I think it was more, this is FCT, this is our goals, here's our mission, here's what we're about. Um and like Jamie said, it still took us some time, right? We kind of sat on it for a day and, talked over dinner or throughout the day through text. Um and Jamie's not one to shy away from hard things or difficult things. You're never really gonna have to ask how she feels because she'll let you know. Um, but yeah, we took the plunge.
Yeah. Maybe it'd be helpful to talk a little bit about sort of what does like an average sort of session look like. Megan, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
yeah, so our sessions, we meet with our families 2 hours a week, twice a week. So it's about 4 hours that we're in the home, roughly. Um, and we kind of go in and, typically I start my sessions and I just like get to know the family. We kind of bond over uh, Zaxby's food and dive burger joints and, stuff like that. So I get to know them. Then I typically just like, we want to know like what's going on in the home. Like, how has this week been? Like, how are things going? Like, has there been anything difficult? And like giving them the space to talk about it. And then we, as FCT practitioners, we bring in some kind of like form of activity, whether that's like an assessment or some kind of skill building game. Um, and we go through the game, and typically the families just they do the game, we sit there and observe, and then we ask them a bunch of questions about how this activity went for them. Like, did you what did you think of this skill? Like, did you see this skill when you were playing the game? Or how did this go for you? And we kind of go through a bunch of those questions. And then sometimes there's times where they're like, oh wait, we actually need to talk about this thing because after doing this activity, we realized that maybe this was a problem. So we kind of talk about like what can we do to build upon it? Like what went well, or what did you learn about yourself or about your family during this? So we definitely just have a conversation about that. Um, and then we kind of wrap up and we give some homework to the families. Like, okay, well, how can you practice this in your home this week? Try and challenge them to really bring that skill into their everyday lives. Um, and then we do a little bit of joining at the end where we just kind of laugh and giggle or talk about, fun things they have coming up in the weekend or, their kids' sporting events and like how that's been going and stuff like that. And then we schedule our next session and we go. So that's typically how like each session kind of runs. So
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for sort of describing that. I mean, I think it's really helpful to hear kind of the, the evidence-based practice side of it, but also to talk about just like how deeply relational it is and how it's a work of sort of building up trust and really engaging kind of on a very human sort of personal level. It's not just you coming with a clipboard and checking things off, right?
that's really too like part of FCT and like how we really make changes. One of the reasons why we go into the home so often too is because we really get integrated like with the family, the way the family runs and like their life. And it's where we are able to access like the most vulnerability with people too and like really get down to the depths of like what is causing these issues so that they are less likely to arise again, but also so that the family has the skills that they need to handle it by themselves when we're not there.
Yeah, awesome. That's awesome. So how was it like you for guys after that first session or two? I mean, still some hesitancy, or did you start to see things?
No, I think it was either session 2 or session 3. I can't remember, but you really start peeling back those layers. Um, and I could feel it as it was happening. I started kind of asking follow-up questions, and I think most specifically we were covering apologies. And I was kind of hemming and hawing as we were going around and discussing, and I caught myself thinking, okay, like I'm not good at this. I don't do this. I'm terrible at this. And still struggle, to be honest.
Yeah.
But just peeling back those layers and seeing the different layers that it takes to formulate an apology, to request an apology, or to ask for an apology. That's when it kind of all opened up to me, and I started looking at it, not so much as a task but a toolbook, to kind of lead and guide a family. This was just the start of many, many things that we learned, throughout our FCT experience. So, um, I think 2 or 3 is right when, I started leaning in pretty hard.
How about for yourself?
Yeah, so the first couple of sessions is a lot of paperwork, it's a lot of talking, it's a lot of demographic stuff. Um, but as Megan stated, she had a way of kind of making you feel at ease. I don't remember the name of the questionnaire, but it asked some pretty tough questions, and I didn't feel uncomfortable answering those with her as maybe I would have. You know, I've never said some of those things out loud that we talked about. So very quickly we became comfortable. And as Blake said, it didn't matter, I think, what we were talking about. It was the way it was brought to us that just made it, we never felt like Megan was judging our crazy kids or our crazy dogs or, just getting off work and being in scrub. I never felt uncomfortable. So very quickly after that first initial, when we started our joining, I very quickly became comfortable. Yeah, it was.
Is there any particular activities you did with Megan that sort of stand out for you that you'd say like, yeah, everyone needs to do this?
Yeah. The boulders is our big one. I mean, we play boulders to this day.
Yeah, the boulder activity, and then I think one of the more eye-opening activities to me, we had we had an exercise where we had toothpicks and marshmallows, and we had to build a 2-story,
Three.
3-story building.
Freestanding structure.
Nobody
Yeah.
could speak. Um, there was one
Couldn't use
other,
verbal communication.
couldn't use
Yeah.
any verbal communication. Um, and you don't realize how often you kind of exclude yourself or just, give me that, I'll do it, and do something yourself until you're all four trying to reach a common goal, and you see all three of your other family members kind of doing their own thing, and there's not any collaboration there. And and for me, you could kind of, that's how you could summarize us. We were all working on something, but not together. Um, and that might sound a little cliche, but it was, it was very eye opening. That was one of my exercises. I kind of cut you off on the boulders, but
No, I really like that one too. And learning that about our family, having Megan say, so do you guys realize that you were not communicating, or if you were, you were communicating through the kids, or kind of maybe some people were being more ramroddy, like their idea was the best. And, we obviously, with not being able to talk, that made it a lot harder to share ideas, but it did become clear that we did not communicate well or work well as a team. Back to the boulders, it's they're phrases that we don't use in our home anymore. And if somebody participates in one of these, they're given a boulder, and it became a competition. And so that was very effective for our family. We're very competitive, I guess.
Yeah, I heard the sports angle
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
the goal of the activity is to get the least amount of boulders. Is that what you're saying, or is it or
Yeah.
most amount of boulders?
Well, it depends.
Yeah, describe it a little bit.
Yeah. So Megan, we had these little baggies, boulders as in a big rock, like that's what I mean by boulder. And if Blake were to use one of our boulders with sarcasm, which we struggle with, we use it. It's a tough one. Sarcasm, then Brantley would provide Blake with a boulder, and then he would have 17 boulders and Brantley would only have 16. And or harsh tone, or name calling,
Stonewalling.
manipulation. Those were the boulders, and to this day they're on our fridge. And our daughter, especially, Mom, that was a boulder. I think maybe your tone was a little harsh. And like, yes, Remington.
I think their kids
Yes.
told me I was using boulders during sessions at one
E-
point. It's a great activity. And especially with families who like get competitive,
Mhm.
it just is really entertaining. Every week I go and I'm like, how'd the boulder game go? And they're like, I won, like I lost,
Yeah.
like I didn't deserve this boulder, whatever it was, like there's always something. But it like takes the 10 most like disruptive forms of communication and like almost if you practice it the way you're supposed to, it makes you completely eliminate them from your home and the way you speak to one another. And then sometimes you realize that, wow, maybe we only speak in sarcasm.
Yeah.
Maybe like everyone always interrupts one another. Like maybe someone just like spitballs things at you and like never gives you an opportunity to speak. So it like really kind of opens your eyes to like what form of communication like you were most heavily relying on too. So it's a fun activity.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said for these activities which are designed to help you learn some better techniques and tools for your communication, but that they're like ultimately fun. Like that there's an element in that makes it a game, but also takes some of the pressure off. Maybe.
Absolutely. Yeah. And getting the kids to participate too in these adult themes, not realizing, I mean, it was very creative and
Habit forming.
habit forming. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I kind of love hearing that your kids are still kind of playing with
We
it.
all
and-
are. Yeah.
yeah.
It's,
That's become part of who you guys
yeah.
are.
We don't use those boulders.
Yeah, that's awesome. Who knew that toothpicks and marshmallows could prove so powerful, in terms of helping us see some things. So you guys, what I'm hearing you guys say is that this is, participating with FCT has really helped improve your family life and your relationship. Do you want to say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just go a step further. It probably saved our marriage. I mean, we weren't we weren't in a good spot. We we didn't agree on a lot of things. We didn't agree on direction for discipline or uh, really anything involving our kids. And so, you know, uh, that's a big deal. And even I think Megan highlighted this towards the end. Jamie and I, even when FCT started, we didn't sit next to one another.
Mm.
If I sat at the head of the table, she would sit 2 seats down or across from me. And probably halfway through, I think we would not only sit by each other, we would show affection. We'd hold hands, or I'd brush her hair out of her face or rub her back or whatever. But um, that's one of the big things I noticed. I mean, it was pretty grave at the beginning, and there are a lot of benefits to leaning in. So
Yeah, yeah.
We were definitely in a catastrophic state, not only within our marriage, within our parenting. One of the cells, again, not that we had to be sold, but something Megan really is, we want to help you guys in with Brantley, and because we were struggling with Brantley, and he was getting in trouble at school, and he was being kicked off of sports teams for anger and attitude issues, and as a family, we were quickly going underwater, and these skills, not only have we learned from this that it wasn't necessarily even a parenting issue, it was a lack of either one of us knowing how to communicate effectively, not only with each other, but with our children. And our example was very poor for them. And even though we worked on issues with our oldest son, um, I think for us, the biggest savior to not only our family happiness and our marriage was this program. Um, I don't know if everyone knows James, but really like James. What was where we did our fishbowl?
Oh, during the structured family assessment.
Structured family assessment. We sat down, and I think James was a little bit taken aback. I mean, it was like a marriage session, our first. And he was like, I think we have bigger issues here. And we were so thankful because a lot of our issues within our marriage and within our parenting have improved with the skills we've learned. So I absolutely, it saved our marriage.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm so happy for you guys. Now you brought up James, and I'm assuming
Yeah.
that's James Enns, your supervisor.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about James and kind of maybe also peel back a little bit, just sort of around the things you're doing when you're not at their home.
Yeah. So James is my supervisor. So one of the activities that we do with families at the beginning of the family center treatment program is called the structured family assessment. So another practitioner will come in, and the families will come out of their home for the first time into our office. Um, and another practitioner will basically run this like family meeting. And I sit there and I just kind of observe and watch. And he or whoever runs it is able to give like a different perspective or maybe something that like I didn't notice. Um, and it's a little bit more structured in that one. We do a lot of different things with that. But James is a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I'm not even sure how long he's been working at FCT, but he is very wise.
Long time.
Yes. And so he ran their structured family assessment, and afterwards, like, or during that, we give them the opportunity for them to watch how like I would talk to him during like my supervision meetings with him. And so they get to see like how I have conversations about their family or like the ways that I recommend things, and then the ways that like other practitioners recommend things because we are a team-based program. So there are a few things that like I present like my families to my team like every 90 days that we're with them. Um and so they get to see what those conversations look like during that. But yes, I remember him just like talking. He was like, like we can really do some like good marriage work with them too, and like get to that so that they can set a role model for their family.
Yeah, that's so great, and I really appreciate you sort of being able to sort of say, hey, I'm not just kind of here by myself. That there's really a whole team of folks behind the scenes, if you will. I mean, I'm aware of your guys' sort of Friday meetings
Yeah.
and all the work you guys do to get prepared and to really collaborate, and I think that's another piece of the power of all of this. It's not just one person coming to your home. It's really kind of a whole team who are there. Um, what's your favorite thing about FCT? If there's one thing you could pull out and say, this is our favorite thing, looking back now on it.
just from like I'll do two because I don't follow rules well. At a convenience perspective, there was so many days where I was, flying home from work and coming in the door the same time Megan was, and it's not Megan's sitting here looking at her watch, waiting. And we kind of established a routine, right? That I'd swing right in, and a lot of times Megan and I would, um, go through the front door together. But um, just the convenience of also being able to or agility to be able to schedule, I guess, more than anything, because we had baseball and basketball and wrestling and
Cheer.
gymnastics, cheer,
All the things.
and we could sit down at the end when we were planning the next week or the week after, and um just sit down on our phones with our calendar. Nope, that doesn't work. How about this? Go back and forth. um so that's my number one. Number two, I would just touch on the activities and the exercises to create habits. It's not, you're not sitting being lectured or, reading through books on best parenting practices. It's really a dynamic approach, evidence-based practice, but it's kind of meets your family where your family's at, finds what works, and applies activities to kind of change those behaviors. So I would say just the dynamic approach would be one of my favorites.
Yeah. So it's very hands-on, and it's very like it sort of flows with the way your life actually goes week by week. What about for yourself?
And to Megan actually volunteered to meet us at baseball practices. Like we'll sit in the parking lot and do some of our parenting stuff. Like that's how flexible. Fortunately, we were always able to find time to meet, but that's how flexible. And my favorite part would probably be the outside perspective. Not in a way that is judgmental or your family really is crappy at this. It was more, you guys are great. Here's what we can do to make you better. I never felt like we were in jeopardy of not having our kids or not being able to keep them. It was more, how can we make this better for all of us, and not just yourself and Blake, but the kids and the family and everyone we share our activities with that have helped friends and our family. That has been my favorite part, is getting to have that opportunity.
Yeah, yeah, and I love kind of you sort of saying like, hey, this is some stuff we can apply in some other parts of our lives, or kind of things we can share with the people who share our orbit. Yeah, I mean, do you want to speak a little bit to just sort of like what was it like? Um, like we come and we walk alongside you, but how do you communicate about what you're going through with sort of other people in your life, like
As far as outside of our
yeah,
FCT,
yeah,
we were pretty, I don't think very many people knew what was going on in our home. Um, I have a sister I tell everything to, so that's why he's looking at me like that. But she knew, but I don't want to say we were manipulative, but we were very choosy about what we allowed the world to see from us and what we wanted our image to be, how we wanted to represent our family. So there wasn't a whole lot of that. We were pretty closed door with what we shared. Highlight loops on social media only. Obviously, didn't share. Tonight we had a major family breakdown. But and after we started FCT, we became very open about it. Actually, we'll kind of touch on that more later with some of the comments we received. But we were pretty closed off.
So what you're saying is that kind of when you came into FCT, some of that fear and concern and what are people going to think about us stuff kind of melted away.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I love about kind of the way we do these prevention programs is it's not about coming and saying, hey, you guys suck, and here's all the ways you're terrible. But really coming in and sort of assessing the real positives, the real strengths, the wisdom you have as the people who live in your home and are raising your family. And so to really kind of key into that and say, okay, like this is how we're going to make you better, not just, again, not as a lecture, but really it's just like let's learn these skills.
Very much. That's how I felt. And we did these self-evaluations and to hear we all had similar ideas of what our strengths are, and to hear what our strengths are. It's you're going about life and you don't stop to think, at least we didn't at that time, what are we doing well as a family, or how could we improve? So just getting that opportunity to hear how we're doing, that we're great at knowing our roles and performing and knowing what we're supposed to be doing, to hear we had these strengths, but yet here are some things we could work on, and here are some things we can do that are fun, that your family will enjoy, or that it wasn't sit down and read this textbook and do the homework with it. It was very hands-on. So long story short, yes.
Yeah, and it sounds to me like it's really changed your lives.
Yeah, I mean, the signs, it's really when you're in the thick of it, and Jamie kind of touched on it.
Yeah.
You know, our we were all spiraling. You know, our oldest was, like Jamie said, in trouble at school, getting kicked off of wrestling teams. And I could go on and on and on. Our youngest was didn't feel heard. You know, she would interrupt in conversations, and um oh, what else? She wouldn't sit down at the dinner table. Just a whole bunch of
Yeah.
stuff, right? And the signs were all there. You know, the kids are spiraling, mom and dad are spiraling, and then we all just spiral together until you step back and you're like, we're leading this army.
Yeah.
What are we doing? Like, it's time to take control.
And it sounds so much like a cliche to be like, oh well, when you start a family, when you start having kids, they don't hand you like, they hand you a baby. They don't hand you like the instruction manual,
No.
right? And so we're all kind of doing the best we can,
Sure.
and it's hard sometimes to see, we've moved further apart, and how do we bring ourselves
Sure.
back together when you're just living your life and doing all the different things. I mean, I think you may have spoken to it a little bit, but you talk about sort of having a mirror held up a little bit. Who referred you to our services? I mean, some of it was Googling, it sounds like, but
Well, so I'm actually not entirely sure. We
miracles happen.
Yeah, miracles. I know DCF was involved. The gal we talked to offered us several referrals to help with Brantley, and I believe they contacted your services.
Yes. Yeah, I got email one day and it was like, "Hey, can you like go reach out to this family? They've been referred to family center treatment." And I was like, "Sure." And I think I called them and here we are now. So
Yeah, away we go. Now we're podcasting
Yeah.
together.
Well, and 2 rejections later, but
You kept at it. You kept
Yeah.
at it.
Yeah.
That's the important thing. So would you do it again? I mean, if you found yourselves needing this again, would that be, that sort of hesitation be easy to overcome for you all? I mean, would you recommend for others who are struggling?
Yeah, we would absolutely do it again. The nice part about it though is you're given a toolbox. And even towards the end, Megan sat down with us and we established a roadmap because nobody's perfect. There's still boulders in the house
Yeah.
and we still take boulders from one another. Um, and we're not perfect. We're human. Someone's going to raise their voice, someone's going to yell, the kids are going to fight, mom and dad are going to disagree. But the important part is how to get back to where you need to be. And whether that's, I had a rough day at work and I'm just irritable. One of those tools was the anger iceberg for me. You're not angry, you're irritated, or you're not angry, you're tired. You're not angry, you're in a rush because you've got 13 things to do today. Um, and so you're given a toolbox to find your way back home or to, an optimal means. But if for some reason or another we completely lost all our tools, and yeah, absolutely, even to just be able to see Megan again.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I know the sort of the separating part. When services are complete, it can be really hard to
Yeah.
to step away. But you know, uh, so how are the kids doing?
Really, really, really well. Actually, Brantley, our son is thriving. Truthfully, he's handling things so well. In Remington, she's she's still Remington, but a much more calm. It's like Blake was saying, she does not acting out and doing these things to be heard anymore because she has our attention and our positive attention, and she's not being put aside for us to deal with Brantley. So I would say that's a lot of it. And you had asked, would we do it again? And every day, we would do it again.
1,000 times.
1,000 times. Not to make
Yeah.
excuses for ourselves or how we acted. We were not provided these tools in childhood. We didn't see our parents. Blake's family was very, sorry, rocks. Yeah, not very kind. They didn't appreciate or see the need for healthy, what I would consider healthy, but kind and in open communication. And my family was the opposite. We didn't talk feelings. We we were fine and we went on. So being able to be provided these tools, as Blake said, our toolbox 1,000 times over, we would do it again to get that opportunity to see outside of what we know and to be able to change what we believe is the norm or create our own norm for our family's health. So absolutely.
It's profoundly eye-opening to sort of realize that the way you were raised and is not the way everybody's life unfolds, and that people come from very different kinds of backgrounds, and then you're together, and all of a sudden it's how are we going to do our thing, and to really have the chance to set a new course, that's not beholden to the past. I think is really powerful for folks. So if you were recommending it to somebody you knew who was struggling, what I'm getting is 5-star review, right? I mean,
Yes.
you would encourage anybody to really look into this, because it can only really help you, only really can improve what's good there, and help you sort of work your way through the challenging parts.
Absolutely. Like you said, 5 out of 5 stars. If you can get past your own idea of who you are and allow somebody or Megan to come in and say, there's better ways to do this, and if you're willing to work hard to better yourself and your kids and your future, I can't see why anybody would say no.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's not about sort of like how do we become the model perfect family.
Right.
It's how do we become the best versions of who we already
Right.
are. Yeah, and who God wants us to be, and
Exactly.
to live into who God wants us to become. Right.
Right.
Yeah. So you guys have been out of services for a while now, and
2 months.
2
Did we close in April?
End of April, beginning of May, we had ice cream.
Yeah, that's right.
So this is really kind of the first time you've seen Megan in a
Yeah.
bit. Yeah. Anything you want to share with her?
We miss you.
When she walked out, I turned to the fridge and I was like, I'm gonna cry, and I couldn't figure out why. And I'm gonna cry now just talking about it, but
That's okay.
we are so thankful for everything FCT and Megan was able to do for us, because we were drowning, and
If it makes you feel any better, I cried when I got to my car that day
I know.
too. So
well,
Anything you want to say to them now that you've got a chance to see them?
I would say like everything in me has like wanted to brag on you guys and like how incredible you like just working with them. Like we're just like I am so thankful for a family who was like no, we are going to make these changes. Like we are going to do this. Like you guys dove in and you went into the deep end. Like once you committed, like you were all in. Which was just so incredible. Like we really sometimes it takes people like months to really dive into it like that. And so I just think it's awesome. And so even like my coworkers now, I'm like, I want to brag on this family. Like you guys are so awesome. And like it was just even like spirit filling for me to see like a family making like such good progress and like being able to like even see your own report of that and be like, no, we have noticed like our family has made comments, our friends have made comments, and just like even that is it's just so incredible and like so amazing to watch. And like even from an outside perspective, like I only got to know y'all for a little bit of time, and I only knew you for a little bit of time before you actually started making those changes. But even just that like month or so before we really started getting into it, and then like seeing the next like 4 months after that, it was drastic, and it was incredible to like be a part of. So I'm like thankful that our paths crossed.
So are we.
That's fantastic. I really appreciate that. I'm really glad you guys could have this opportunity to reconnect today.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your vulnerability and sharing your story. I'd like to just one more time say, when you got the call to come do this, what were you thinking? Why is this so important?
I think it's important to show people that at any point in life, or wherever you're at, and everyone's human, right? It's not too late, and don't wait until it's too late. We were close.
Yeah.
And nothing is too broken that you can't fix it. And so don't wait. Lean in. Put your pride aside. Work ethic is not something that's absent in our home with any of us. It does take work. It's not easy, but lean in. And family's all you have, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so that's very important to lean in.
We struggled even when James had suggested the podcast. We was like, oh yeah, great idea, great idea. And then we got the email and I said, oh no.
Oh, it's real. Who
It's
knew?
real. And then it was just, again, it went against who way back then we didn't want people to know that we had these struggles, and we didn't want people to know that we had DCF in our home, and we didn't want people to know that we required 6 months of intense, therapy to be what we considered healthy and happy. And so agreeing to come on the podcast, actually, even yesterday I told Blake, oh no, it's a video, it's not just our voices. And I was like, maybe we should just not, but I want people to know, people who are struggling, whether it be, some of the things we talked about were addiction or physical abuse or emotional abuse, or, even the resources that can be provided through FCT. They can help no matter what your issues are. Even if you don't fully believe you have issues, you will discover, or, just let them help. So we wanted to come on the podcast and kind of share that vulnerability and let people know that there is hope, and the course of your lives can be changed from this if you let it.
Thank you again for being willing to do that and for opening up, in this kind of public way. But I do think it can make a difference, and there's somebody out there who might be watching this who's going to be inspired by what you guys went through and inspired by the work you did with this family, and we're just thankful for your willingness to share about it. Again, congratulations on successful completion. Congratulations and blessings to you as you move forward, as you and your family move forward. It's been a real pleasure to speak with you today. And again, thank you for your hard work and helping this family really come back together. It really makes a difference. And that's what we do here at St. Francis Ministries, is try to make a difference. So thank you both.
You did.
Thank you all.
So, thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.